Hello everyone, welcome to Since 1919. I am so excited today because we have two guests with us, the first guest we've ever had on the podcast. Here is Nikki and Kim. They're court managers at the 17th Judicial Court. And we're actually going to be talking about a project that is not yet open, but we were involved with. And it has a lot of really interesting facets, trauma-informed design, and they were very involved in that process and a lot of the design choices in this formerly public safety building going to be the new family courts. They're actually going to start with a brief history of the public safety building. And Nikki, Kim, if you want to take it from there.
Sure. Well, Rockfordians may remember back in the 70s, their public safety building downtown opened, and it's connected to what is now our current county courthouse, and it housed the City of Rockford Police Department for many, many years. Then as time went on, when the police department moved to a different structure, the public safety building eventually became empty, and has been the topic for many years of whether it should stay or whether it should go. And for a while it was going to go, and then it was going to stay, and then it was going to go. But about 6 years ago now, I think, midst of COVID, there was some federal funding that became available that let us explore not us, but the county explore the opportunity of perhaps refurbishing and remodeling this building to create what we're calling a family court center. And so the public safety building has been saved and has been turned into what we are very excited about, a new space for our community to use.
And how did you two get involved with this project? What led you here?
Go ahead, Kim.
Sure. Well, we're both court managers. Mm-hmm. This is a space that Nikki has worked in. She's worked with families. She's worked with interpersonal, what is it now? Interpersonal violence. I was thinking some other intimate partner violence.
You could say that too.
For a while. And so Nikki really leads teams that work on these issues. She works with people around the community to coordinate around these issues. So it would be natural that she would be a part of this project. And she is kind of our in-house expert. And then I am involved, I think just because I get involved on
everything.
Things. To try to look at the bigger picture, but also the details and how we need to actually make things work.
Yeah, I think Kim has a really good knack for like envisioning how the space will flow and kind of looks for some of the things that people like myself tend to overlook or assume like, oh, we'll deal with that later. Kim is not that type of person at all. So I think our styles really complement one another, and definitely could not have done the project without her.
Now, I did forget to introduce you, Zach, at the top of the show, but you've been on here a couple times, so I think the people know who you are. You are also involved in this project. Can you speak how you got involved?
Yeah, so Kim and Nikki had mentioned there was some some behind-the-scenes work taking place before we got involved, but ultimately there was an RFP that was sent out by the county for a design build firm to do the design and construction. And if you don't know what design build is, you could tune into one of our previous podcasts where we talk about design build work and all the advantages and a couple disadvantages, but not many, mostly advantages of design build work. So I guess the biggest advantage probably was though that there was a lot of the schematic design was basically complete, because like Nikki and Kim had mentioned, there was some preliminary conceptual, I guess you could say, floor plans that were made, but those had worked out a lot of like the functionality issues that might pop up. So adjacencies between rooms, kind of how the courtrooms are laid out, how you get to the courtrooms. So it wasn't just for like staff efficiency, but it was also just for the actual like victims who would utilize the space too, and the community that they're going to serve as a part of this project. So a lot of that, we'll get into some of those specific design details on what they worked out beforehand, but that was basically one of the deliverables for the RFP. Is we got that floor plan and then a kind of a written scope of work on what all was going to be required from the design build team. So we did an interview process, and then once we got the job, we teamed up with Ringland Johnson Construction, as our design build partner. Then that's when we really started to collaborate and take that design that they had worked out with, and then kind of started to, because obviously money is important, right? So there was a lot of things that we felt as a team could help, bring the price down to where it needed to be to make this project work. So that was a collaborative effort between us and the courts and the county to kind of get the final design that we ended up coming up with.
Right, so you were able to like make adjustments based on what we're going to talk about next, which is trauma-informed design and characteristics.
Exactly, yep.
Would you like to describe that, like kind of define that for our viewers, and then what those characteristics are?
Sure. You want to go first? Or-
Sure.
Yeah, take it, Kim.
So just trauma-informed design means really just recognizing that there's a lot of people in our community and in the courthouse that carry trauma histories with them, to recognize that and to try to really think about the space that you have or you're creating, to not re-traumatize or to not
Exacerbate.
invoke those trauma triggers. So that's what it is to us.
Yeah, I think, something Kim and I and our team kept coming back to is how will people feel in this space, and how will staff feel? And I think anytime you're trying to incorporate trauma-informed design, that's the grounding question.
Yeah.
And so, there's a couple tenets that are kind of commonly known. You want to think about lighting. So natural light tends to make people feel better, right? Anybody that has an office with a window versus without can understand that feeling. Thinking about how people navigate the space, the seating that you offer people. The thought is, especially in a courthouse, people are under tremendous stress, and exceptionally so when you're talking about family proceedings or proceedings involving domestic violence. And so anything you can do to remove or kind of negate some of that stress is helpful, right? You know how frustrating it is when you get somewhere, you're nervous, then you don't know where you're going, it's not comfortable, it feels icky, right?
Yeah.
And so thinking about all of those things, and again, centering yourself in how would I feel if I was coming into this space. And so that's really what led us to some of the design, and then incorporating safety principles as well. So there, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but there was some specific requests and asks we had of 1919 and Ringland Johnson because it was rooted in safety.
So after that kind of brief description, we're going to talk about how these specific items were actually embodied in the new Family Court Center. One thing that we had a pre-interview, one thing that stood out to me was, Nikki, you mentioned having a cafe.
Oh, yeah.
And just how, it's a stressful situation being in court, and being able to eat something is so helpful. Can you talk about some more of the ways that some of these design choices are in this new Family Court Center?
Sure, I'll cover a couple, and then I'll let Kim take the rest. Well, I have to talk about the cafe for a second, because we've worked in the courthouse for a long time. There's not much option for a snack or drink except some vending machines in the basement, both for staff and patrons. And one thing we know, and Kim can talk more about, there's a lot of research right now behind giving people a snack and how that helps your brain function better. But one thing we know is that can be a really calming, grounding experience. Is if you can give people a cup of coffee and a snack, it makes a big difference, right? And so we felt like it was really important to incorporate that. So not only is the cafe available to the public, but it's available to staff. And then in our kind of private domestic violence assistance center, we have a little kitchen kiosk in there too. So it's some of those simple things that sometimes we take for granted. Talking about safety, and then I'll turn it over to Kim. We really, when we designed the Domestic Violence Assistance Center and the adjacent courtrooms, we really came at it from the space of we don't want people moving around a ton. So our current structure, people have to go all over the place to just engage in one court proceeding, right? They might have to stop at the clerk's office, and then they go upstairs to a different office, and then maybe their kids have to go downstairs to the drop-in childcare center, and then the courtroom is in a whole nother area, right? And not only is that frustrating, we just talked about wayfinding and it's confusing, But in some of these domestic violence situations, it can really be a safety concern. Yes. The more that you are out there moving around, people can see you. The other person that you're afraid of may be in the building, right? Yeah. And it's just not good for anyone. So with this new design, we have things built in that once you get in that assistance center, you don't really have to leave. Okay. And you're able to see a judge kind of from that space. We have a way to route you now that you don't have to go back out into the public, and really put a lot of intention into that space of that's where somebody can kind of come and sit and do their thing, have a snack, their kids can play, and they don't need to be shuffled around a lot. So that's, you know, an example of some of the safety things that we looked at, and just kind of how the space just in general flowed.
Right. So when you're trying to create an environment that doesn't create additional stresses, that's one thing that we were considering. Yeah. How can we eliminate this stress that we're kind of have right now in our space and bring it all together?
Yeah. Talk about the stairs.
Yeah. So, right, ample space, lighting. It was important to us to really think about what that meant for us. We identified pretty early on that safety consideration and considering how people might feel in this space. So right now, to kind of get to other floors, it's either an enclosed stairwell, very tight quarters, or the elevator. And so we wanted to be able to give some choice and options on how you get to the second floor. So we do have now a big open stairwell that goes to the second floor. That was identified pretty early on as a priority for us. And that's what we tried to communicate early on to 1919 and to everyone. It was important to us that there was a space where people could go up the stairs. They knew that security had eyesight on them from the first floor and the second floor. Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't get stuck in an elevator with someone that maybe you did not want to be in an elevator with. Mm-hmm. And everything, as Kim said, right when you walk in, you can kind of see everything, which I think is helpful. We also thought natural light was important and worked with the architects about how we could use the existing window structure, which Zach can talk about more. I don't know what to call it, but there's lots of windows that surround the building, and how we could design something that allowed that light to come into the center space still. Ceiling height we looked at. We looked at seating choice, because something Kim just alluded to is part of being trauma informed is giving people a choice.
Yes.
And so instead of just having these popcorn seating rows that you got to sit in, they're not very comfortable. We were really intentional about giving people seating options, like a comfortable club chair, or do you want to sit at a high top where you can write something down, or do you want more of a like couch space? And some people, I think, thought that was really silly of us, but again, for us, that was really important. This is going to look different than your standard courthouse. Again, we want people to feel good when they're coming in here.
So what Nikki was mentioning, it's not just about choice of what kind of seating options are available, but we also asked Zach to think about, we wanted to make it feel like there were different spaces available. Even though it's one big room, how can we make it feel like you have little different environments, I guess, that you could choose.
So like jury assembly, right? We got some of those like high back, soft chairs, and it almost like when you're in there, I feel like those do a pretty good job, like especially if you're sitting down. Like it's not just a big room; it makes it seem like you're in smaller areas.
Maybe we should orient people to what exactly is in this building.
Yeah,
we haven't done that, have we?
Do you? Yeah, I don't know if you guys just want to kind of go over what all, like, I don't know, if I guess what we would call it the program. So what different spaces are in this building?
Yeah, sure. So right now we have our front security entrance. What's being expanded in that space is it literally expanded, got a little bit bigger. So it does feel not so condensed when you walk in. Right when you enter, we did create what we call a recombobulation station. So there's some seating now where if someone did have to remove their belt, they have an opportunity to be comfortable and put their belt back on. So that's new for us. On the first floor, we also brought up, we have a children's waiting area in our current courthouse. We were able to relocate that with this design from the basement of our courthouse to the first floor. So it's right when you enter.
Immediately, right when you walk in.
And then we have jury assembly now, which is on the first floor in this new building. In our current courthouse, it's on the 5th floor and kind of tricky to navigate. Go through a few doors up an elevator. And then our cafe that we're very excited about is on the first floor with a nice waiting area in front of it with some tables.
And it also opens up into jury assembly, so you could be a juror. Once you're in jury assembly, you can't leave until you're released, and so they will have the opportunity to use the cafe too. So I thought that was important. You know, I'm worried about the food all the time.
I am too.
So yeah, that's the first floor. That's one side of the first floor. Because if you're familiar with this building, it's in downtown Rockford. Like they mentioned, it's been around for a while. But you can drive. You used to be able to drive under the building. We're not allowing that as a part of this project
for a long time. Yeah.
So that's the east side of the first floor.
And then upstairs, we have 5 courtrooms, brand new courtrooms that are going to house our family court judges. So think about divorce proceedings, child custody, order of protection proceedings. That's where our new domestic violence assistance center that I mentioned is. There's a suite of administrative offices and all the things that happen behind the scenes, court reporting and such. And then we're also really excited about these public conference rooms and classrooms that we have because we do host a lot of trainings and meetings. We are a mentor court, so we have people from around the country come visit. And right now we have 0 space to do that. We're borrowing, begging, stealing from others and just making it work. And so we're thrilled to have some space of our own to use. Yeah. Did I miss anything upstairs?
I think you got it.
Yeah, I think in general you got everything. And then kind of one of the things you mentioned was light, right? Like bringing natural light into the space. So it's basically that one of the key design features that we did is the front wall of all those like conference rooms and public classrooms, meeting rooms. There are ribbon windows that go all the way around that second floor. But the waiting area is more of like an interior space, so it doesn't have direct access to those windows. So we just did from floor to ceiling glass balls on the inside of that. So all that natural light goes through that wall and it penetrates into the waiting area. So when you're in that area, you get that light and that openness that you would. And then the other thing that just from a construction perspective. It was made to us very clear very early on that open staircase was very important for the county. So it was very difficult though at first to analyze that from a cost perspective because this building is just solid concrete, just everywhere.
It's a fortress.
Yeah, and in some areas it's pre-stressed concrete, so it's got pre-stressed steel tendons embedded into the concrete, and it's possible to cut through those, but you got to be very skilled and very careful at that because there's actually been some pretty major construction accidents when people cut into a tendon and they're not expecting it. It almost explodes.
Oh no.
So we didn't want that, obviously. So one of the things that we were able to do to help save costs is we took an existing staircase and we looked at it from a code perspective. We could actually eliminate that staircase. It didn't need to be used for egress anymore. So there was enough egress around the other existing exits. So we were able to actually just take down the elevator shaft, and that was a huge hole in the floor. So we were able to locate the open staircase within that, save some funding or some money for that, and also situate like the security areas, like you said, around that to still make sure that the goal was met, that there's this feeling of openness and security throughout that space. So that's just from a design perspective, kind of how we were able to compromise with them and come up with a plan that worked.
Nice. One thing I wanted to mention, how is or does color of the walls or interiors, was that a factor in trauma-informed design or in this building?
Yes. Color was important to us. You want to create an environment that makes people, I think, feel calm and welcome. And so blues and greens and things of that nature. I think Kim and I definitely had a vision of like what we wanted the walls to look like, but we also furniture-wise wanted some color. Like we didn't just want this like, I don't want to say boring, but like standard black furniture everywhere, right? We wanted it to have some color. And so we kept saying that, and I think that's where people like Zach became helpful, because he could say like, you know, these colors might not go well together, but these will, or, you know, we would lay things out and then kind of make Zach give the final approval. So if you don't like the color, it's actually
It's my
Zach's
fault. Yeah, we took a trip to the merchandise mart to look at their furniture, and it was fun.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming.
Yes.
There's a lot that went into that, because you guys do like it's really cool how when you go through the space from the first floor to the second floor, there's like a theme kind of, you know, everything I think fits together well, but it is like there's different colors used in different areas, so you get these different feelings when you walk in, and it's not just like what you would consider like a traditional maybe like government facility or something that's just is more cold, and it's not it's not, doesn't give you the warm and fuzzies when you walk in. So
Yeah, I think like we said earlier, I think sometimes people didn't understand why it was so important to us, and like it definitely would have been a lot easier to say just pick black or you know, do your thing, but we really kind of stuck to we want color, we want themes, we want this, and
We were mindful on that, perhaps on the wall coloring. We knew we had to be a little bit more neutral to support our facilities teams and being able to upkeep that, right?
you can't have like 8 different colors of paint laying around type of thing.
So we knew that part, but so that's why we also brought to Zach. This is why in our furniture, introducing some color is really important. We knew that we wanted to create those different spaces in a giant space, areas that felt separate, to lean into this idea of giving choice about at least where you're sitting or what kind of environment you're choosing to wait in for a little bit. So yeah, we do have a few different colors floating around the space in our furniture.
Well, I mean, this sounds like such a tremendous undertaking that you guys took on, and, you know, the 17th Judicial Court took on, just to kind of humanize a very scary and challenging experience. And I just want to say thank you for being here today and like sharing that with all of us, because I mean, I don't know the future of a lot of courts, but I feel like this is just so important. It'd be so nice if this was more of a theme moving forward. I just also want to promote something Nikki shared with me as well. She also produces a podcast called Learning with Your Youngblood. Each season or series examines responses to domestic violence in Winnebago County, Illinois, through the eyes of the host. Please listen to that after you've listened to this episode.
This first, right?
I just also want to say again, thank you, Nikki, thank you, Kim, thank you, Zach, for being here. Follow us on Since 1919. We're on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and we'll be sharing clips of this. And can't wait for you to listen to it. Thank you so much for watching.